Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined alongside Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. It's a Thursday, which means we will be previewing USC's upcoming game against Oregon State in Corvallis. It should be an interesting one.
Yes.
We'll be talking about USC's coaching changes. We haven't had a live show. I know Ryan did a solo live show, but we haven't had a full live show since all the shakeups, so we'll definitely be discussing that. And of course, we'll be talking about full pads November. It seems like no pads November is not a thing anymore for USC, so we'll be talking about that, maybe an increase in physicality, who knows. And of course, we will be answering your questions. I believe we are trimulcasting on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope. So make sure you put your questions in. We will be sure to answer them. But guys, coaching shakeups. We got to see a whole week of practice with Tim Drevno as the new offensive line coach, as well as running backs coach, that duality there. And also no Neil Callaway. And T. Martin is demoted, essentially. So what did you guys think of all the changes we saw in practice this week?
Well, I was gonna wear no hat today because I was like something has to change, so I was gonna flip the script. But then they made some changes themselves, so I didn't have to. So.
Hashtag USC change came through eventually.
That's true. Wow.
It took
a minute.
2/3 of the season to go by. Very straight. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess at practice, like Tuesday, it was like the T. Martin watch, like to make sure he was going to come out there. He was very cordial when he spoke to us. I think Keely, you put up that video of T. Martin after practice. We don't know the future of what's going on there, but I don't think a lot of people enjoy being essentially demoted. But he's a team player with that, and we'll see what happens. There's 4 games left. I expect there'll probably be some more stuff happening after the season, I would guess. But who knows? I think a lot's going to depend on these last 4 weeks. Like you can't, anything can happen. Dan Weber was talking about it. This team could be 4-8. Or they could be 8-4 and beat UCLA and Notre Dame, who's like a playoff team, knock them out of the playoffs. That's very different fortunes. There's a whole bunch of different things that can happen. But I thought it was a positive sign that, maybe it took too long, yes, all that kind of stuff, but moving things in a direction you want to go. Where, if you feel like the offensive line wasn't performing well, which we've kind of talked about all year, he lets, basically a second father to him go. That's not easy to do. So, you got to give Clay Helton props for that. And he wants to take over, if you want to go down with the ship, he wants to do a call on the play. So he's taking over that stuff. And, criticism, obviously they hear the criticism out there. I mean, even social media, on our message boards, whatever, what we say, what they say on the radio. No Pads November has just been like this, something that's just been like this calling card for they're not being very physical. So he says, you know what, well, it's like 4 practices. We're going to go full pads. Like, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a change. But in the eyes of, like, the fans and stuff, and the eyes of, like, probably the players, the seniors that wanted it, that's a pretty big deal that they go no pad, get, full pads back. So I thought they were all positive signs, and, we'll see how that all plays out these last 4 games.
Now let's break this down, though. I mean, Clay Helton said that with the no pads November decision, that was the seniors wanted that. They wanted to be physical, and then he said that T. Martin was very supportive of the decision. T. Martin was so supportive that, as Keely noticed, he completely changed his Twitter bio.
Oh, I should have put that up on the screen.
So he went from, a photo of him, with the USC stuff on to a family photo. He went from a header with all USC and, his former wide receivers, USC and Kentucky, and suddenly that was a beach photo. He removed his bio that said USC offensive coordinator, receivers coach. Just nothing there anymore. So Keely sent me a text. He's like, "Did you see T. Martin's bio now?" And I was like,
because he had tweeted, and I saw a different profile picture, and I was like, oh. So then I checked, and then I sent Chris and Shotgun. I was like, this doesn't look good. But when T. Martin was asked about it, he had a very PC answer. He's like, just wanted to put a picture of my family on Twitter.
So he was asked about it.
He was asked about it, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
He was asked about it, and he said, I just wanted to put a picture of my family. And then when he was asked, do you want to be back next season, all he said was, I love USC. So
yeah. No, I'm not saying this is like, I mean, who knows? T. Martin he's been around for 7 or 8 years. He might be
like
around
an institution.
He might be around 7 or 8 more. But I mean, the writing on the wall doesn't look like that's going to be.
Usually, you don't take a demotion and you just hang around.
I mean, but I think we did the hashtag change thing, or you started that, or whatever, because USC changed, because something needed to change. Like, you had to do something different. I mean, the team was 4-4. I mean, that's why I asked him on the Sunday conference call, hey, are you gonna, mix it up a little? Like, I didn't.
Did you think your question would be that important when you asked it?
Apparently, like, it was. Yeah, it's like now everyone's talking about the question I asked them, because it was like, but it seemed like it was, beyond time.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was, part of that where everyone's kind of realizing, and he's like, here this is what we're gonna do. So, I mean, I applaud him for being able to do that. You're almost at the end of the season. Like, you didn't have to. So he made some tough calls, and I think if that's going to allow him to make more tough calls at the end of the season, if they finish pretty strong, he's retained all that stuff. I think that's positive for him and his staff. You have to kind of do something. It's like going down the strip. You made a decision like 3 years ago. You don't have to stick to it now. And it just seemed like that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
It was interesting. He said, it was the toughest decision he's had to make, or the toughest thing he's had to do, firing Neil Callaway. And he said, I just couldn't look him in the face, knowing that for 4 more weeks, knowing that at the end of the season, this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So you come to the decision, and it was like, okay, I know this is going to happen. Let's just make the call now, which obviously is tough for him. We've said it before. Neil Callaway's basically extended family to him, like an uncle, because he coached with his father. His father coached for him. Back when each of them was a head coach, the other one was on the staff.
Neil Callaway recruited Clay Helton at Auburn. There's a deep relation. Like Bruce Feldman said, he told him it's like his second father.
Yeah.
So there's a really tight relationship. It's like Lane Kiffin having to get rid of Monty Kiffin, essentially.
Yeah, really tough decision for him to make, but he made the decision. So I think it's a positive for a USC to show that Clay Helton is willing to make a change that may be tough, may be unpopular in his own household, but he knows that his job's the one on the line. And you're not getting paid that $2 million or whatever he's getting, 2.5, whatever, to be like, well, I just can't do that. Make that decision. You got to make the tough decisions. You get paid the big bucks, and that's what you have to make the tough decision. You got to make the tough choices. That's what he's done. Demoting T. Martin is a tough decision as well because of the optics of it. Because now if the offense doesn't do well, that's all on Clay Helton. Whereas he could do the same thing and be calling all the plays himself. There's been a lot of talk about, he's calling the plays anyways. I don't think that's necessarily true. And he even said that, basically T. Martin has been calling basically like 95% of the time. And, when there's a trick play or something, that's when he kind of puts his input in when he wants those type of things. But so now.
And I would watch him, and it's like, I would watch him from the press box a lot of times. And it's like, it doesn't look like he's I don't know how he would have been able to call the plays from what you were seeing. You'd have to be pretty involved to call every one.
Yeah, you usually have to have a play sheet, and you have to be looking at something, and that wasn't exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was necessarily doing that previously, even though there's some reports of it. I think now he could have simply did this internally and said, all right, I'm going to call the plays now. And then a report might have came out like this is happening, but he put it out there. I'm going to be the one calling, so he puts himself on the line in that regard as well. So I think he's made some tough choices here, and I think it's a positive for the program going forward that shows that he's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Now Lynn Swann obviously has a tough choice as well, whether to bring him back or not. We've heard conflicting rumors and stuff from people in the know with that, whether or not that's going to happen. We actually expected there to be maybe an announcement earlier this week, potentially, but that did not exactly happen either. So a lot of things that you expect to happen did not happen. Unexpected things did happen. So this was a unique week covering the beat. And no one's actually even said anything. Like yesterday, someone said Jamar Jefferson. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, he's leading the Pac-12 in rushing.
Yeah.
And no one's even talked about anything about Oregon State. They've just have been an afterthought.
He got an offer the last day, like the day before signing day, from T. Martin. He's a running back from Narbonne High School, true freshman, and he's killing it up there. So I think he had another offer too, like somewhere big, like outside of the Pac-12 or something. But
Tennessee.
They might have came in on him late. But we'll definitely talk about Oregon State. But here's what for USC fans, I know there's a lot of fans that just, I don't want to see them back, and so any talk about that, they're going to be upset. But so if you're talking about, hey, you want the team to be successful, I think Clay Helton making these decisions is definitely a step in that right direction.
Yeah.
But if we think what happens, we think is going to happens with T. Martin, he's not going to be around. To me, that says there's definitely going to be other shakeups on the coaching staff. For one reason, T. Martin is the best recruiter that they have. So if you lose him, you're losing a huge portion of your like recruiting talent. And because the way the staff is composed, it's pretty top heavy as far as who handles the recruiting duties. There's, half of the staff doesn't really do very much. So if you lose your best guy, it's like you almost have no choice than to replace some of the guys on staff that don't recruit that well, because you need to be able to bolster the entire staff recruiting wise. Now, he told Neil Callaway, he said, I don't want to have to look Neil Callaway in the face knowing that I'm going to get rid of him in 4 weeks. Well, is he not doing that to some other guys that he knows he's going to get rid of too? So it's really kind of weird what's going on. But if what happens, we think is going to happen, and T. Martin, who scrubbed his Twitter and all that stuff, is gone, that's so much recruiting power you need to replace. It's almost like you don't have a choice than to get rid of some other guys too.
Yeah, and the big question becomes early signing period. What happens with that? Does anyone actually sign? Because you don't know if your head recruiter, T. Martin, is going to be there for the full signing day.
Yeah.
It's this whole, I don't know where this goes from here. It's interesting. But to Clay Helton's credit, I believe on Sunday we even asked, does Helton even have the cutthroat mentality to make those decisions? And 24 hours later, he's cutting his second father almost. So,
yeah.
I mean,
24 hours after saying, no, we're going to wait till the end of the season
which
to
leads me
reassess.
to my next point is we've had a lot of questions already. That do you think Lynn Swann had a big hand in these decisions, or do you think Clay Helton said it was his decision? He had a sleepless night on Sunday, came back on Monday, and made those decisions. But do you think that Lynn Swann had a hand in this? Of course, he meets with Lynn Swann on Monday.
Yeah.
So
I think he did for sure. I know that they haven't said that. Clay Helton didn't say that, but there's a weird power sort of vacuum at USC right now. And I think if you ever watched Narcos, Pablo Escobar, like a famous Colombian gangster that,
drug lord.
Yeah, huge. The biggest cocaine trafficking ring in the world. When he was taken down, it left this then all this other chaos happens because you're the man at the top. From everything I've been hearing, it's like Max Nikias was running a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was based on, being able to raise money for the university. That's $6 billion, all of that kind of stuff. Well, he's gone. You got people in the board of trustees. You have Dr. Austin, who's the interim president. You have Lynn Swann, who's never been athletic director before, who's kind of learned on the job, and all the different people that are in the athletic department, and then major boosters like the Wayne Hugheses of the world and all those guys. So there's a lot of people that are kind of have their hand in this pie. So I don't think that there's if you say, oh, this is definitely going to happen, I don't think anyone really even knows that right now. I think there's different people in power that want certain things to happen, but Lynn Swann will have, I think he does have some control of what's going on, and part of it would be talking to Clay Helton about making changes on the staff. He hears crap all the time. We saw him in front of the press box getting accosted by fans telling him which coaches should hire and stuff like that. That's just a daily occurrence for some. And so I think all of this was USC's attempt, Clay Helton's attempt, Lynn Swann's attempt with him appearing on Trojans Live, with all of that stuff. I think that was an internal thing between those people that are like, hey, we need to take this back. We need to take the narrative back. Social media is going crazy. When USC posts their own video up, all the comments are about, this is their own thing. It's not us. It's not our message boards.
Turn off comments.
They have to, because it's all about, replacing. So to me, this was, I don't think it's just Clay Helton. I think it was an effort by those people, in that group, that we need to take this back and do things on our own terms, because it was kind of spiraling out of control. We do these things like this, and all the questions are, who's going to be the next coach? It's like, that's not what they want to see. So sorry for the long answer, but I feel like it was more about them, Clay Helton, Lynn Swann, everyone kind of coming together and hey, we need to put a stop to this. What can we do? And, they tried to make some positive changes to change the overall narrative. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's what my feeling is. This was their effort to try to do that.
And of course, Clay Helton said, no, I had this decision going into that meeting. So that's what he says.
Right, yeah.
He said a lot of things this week. You're like, I don't think that sounds right.
The timeline
night,
is
when
a
I asked
little
him that night, are you
wonky.
going to make a change? It's like, no, I'm not going to make a change. But then you woke up in the morning and you were going to make a change. So
your question must have prompted that sleepless night, obviously.
I don't mind. I don't feel like he's lying or anything. But you don't have to say exactly how it's going. But I don't feel like it. He made that decision in a vacuum.
So we talked about what happened. So now, what is the effect of what happened? talked to the offensive lineman this week. I mean, Toa Lobendon and Chris Brown were around when Tim Drevno was the offensive line coach before. So I talked to Toa. It seemed like it was very positive for the group. Anytime you have a change, it can go one of two ways. It can either be a shot in the arm, or it can be like, oh, we're just playing so bad, and you just you get sad about it and you become deflated even more, depending on maybe the personality of the person replacing someone versus the person leaving. I think it's positive. It seemed like the group has taken it positively because of Neil Callaway's more old school. Tim Drevno is younger, a little bit more energetic. I think the players are responding to that a little bit better. I think the fact that Drevno is a little bit more detail oriented with focusing on teaching rather than Callaway would explain something and then they would rep it over and over until they that, and he expected them to get it right after that. Whereas it sounds like Drevno is more, he'll pause and like, okay, no, you need to put your hand here, to talk about different things. Much more like Kenichi Daisy is as far as hands-on teaching, I think, which I think is really big with this offensive line. Like they'll be in the right positions a lot of times and not make the play themselves. That's where those physical beats come from, where you're getting beat by someone one-on-one. So I think that's a positive. How much change can a coaching change like that enact in 4 weeks? That's going to be tough. Yeah. I mean, they're not completely overhauling the scheme or anything like that. And Toa said that as well. It's like you can't really change everything, but he's putting his own. Drevno is putting his own little his unique takes on things. And Toa wouldn't talk about exactly what they were doing different because he said it was very game plan oriented as far as. So I don't know if that means, hey, we're gonna get out in screens and we're gonna do this better, that type of thing. So he didn't want to kind of give away the game plan in any way like that. But he said that Drevno is kind of putting his own mark on it, but doing it in small details rather than a big overarching thing.
Before we move on to practice stuff, we had multiple questions that wanted to know, what do you make of Swann's comments? I know a lot of people think that a vote of confidence from your athletic director is kind of a kiss of death.
Yeah.
But we were hearing that it was going to be more of a he's coming back next season type of deal. What do you make of the comments that he didn't have to go into a design and yet he did?
No, I think it was a real vote of confidence. I don't think it was a fake one or he did fall short though of declaring that he was going to come back, and that's what we had heard. Like that's the rumor, and that's different sources were saying that's what Lynn Swann was planning on doing. He didn't do that. Now, was it because he was told that just fall short of that, or did he really think that he gave it's like did he feel like that's what I said? But you listen to the words, he didn't come back and say for sure he's coming back. So It's really hard to say. But I think that's a real vote of confidence. I think there's people at USC that are in power that would like to go in a different direction, but I think there's other people that have said, we fired coaches mid-season. Like there's a lot of turmoil going on, so they don't want to make a change right now. Ideally, you wouldn't have to change coaches. And what I heard from Lynn Swann was more of here's all the reasons why you shouldn't be calling for Clay Helton's head, because he won the Rose Bowl and they won the Pac-12 championship. And he mentioned sanctions, which happened 10 years ago. I mean, there was some weird. And then at the end, it was sort of like, the dad telling you, this is why you should just be a USC fan and, don't worry about, just support them no matter what. And so it was a weird kind of interview. It was a little bit strange. It seemed a little scripted. And but from reading behind I don't think that's someone that came out to say, oh yeah, we're supporting our coach, knowing that I'm going to fire him in 4 weeks. Maybe he would fire him after the season, but my gut feeling is that is not the intention right now. Like, unless something crazy happens, from hearing what he said and trying to interpret, play amateur psychologist or whatever, I wouldn't think that's a Lynn Swann that feels like, hey, in 4 weeks, I'm getting rid of him.
I think the best thing for him, even if he wants to keep him, was to not say it. Like, just hedge your bets a little bit, because you lose 4 straight games, you get blown out by 30 points by all 4 games, you're done. There's no way you're coming back from that.
The pressure would be so high. I don't care what your intentions are now.
So why would you say, he's definitely coming back? Just wait the 4 games, and you can make the same announcement into, at the beginning of December. You still have 2 weeks going into the final, the early signing day, so you can, work on recruits there. I know that that's part of the potential, if you give a vote of confidence, then okay, that helps recruiting because then the guys know that he's coming back, that type of thing. But why? 4 weeks is not that big. I mean, you still have plenty of time before the early signing date to make that, to make your final recruiting push. And if he gives that vote of confidence after, that's fine. And you'll know much better about this team in 4 weeks than you do necessarily now because you make some changes. You got to see what comes of those changes.
Yeah.
So why go on and be like, yeah, he's definitely coming back. We're going to honor his entire contract now. It doesn't make any sense to do it. But it seemed like that's what was going to happen,
Yes.
which I was confused about to begin with. So I think he did the right thing. Yeah, this is who we want. This is who we want to lead. But not go all the way and say that definitely he's coming back. He's going to be here for 20 years or whatever it may be. So it was interesting that some of his comments were kind of interesting. You talked about him basically being like, "This is why we need you as Trojan fans now," or whatever it was that he said. It was like, what?
It was kind of strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was he was kind of like chastising you for like, why would you be critical? Like, you should just be a USC fan and through the thick and thin and stuff. And it, like I think you mentioned off air, like it's not cheap for we've heard and you got the Coliseum renovations and stuff going on. People get their seats moved. Like, it's not been a great experience for a lot of loyal 40-year season ticket holder. How many calls and emails and tweets that we get from people? So. That was, I didn't think that was very, I don't know, it's like cool or whatever. It wasn't like the right thing to do to chastise some of these USC fans who are paying a lot of money, going through a lot. And, if they don't like the product on the field, I think they have a right to express it. So, but it does come back. I just feel like 100% this was their way to try to grab the narrative and take it back and say, like, reset everybody. Like, you stop being critical, which I don't think is going to work, but I think that's what they were trying to do.
And one of the things Lynn Swann did say, he was keen on continuity. He said if you fire a coach, you're starting over, which is what some people want to do. Whereas Lynn Swann's is basically saying, we've done this a couple times already recently. We don't want to start over again. Is basically what it sounded like he was saying.
Right. And then the Steelers, he comes from the Steelers organization, which they've had, Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin. Like, that's basically it for the last, 50 years or whatever. So I'm a big Steeler fan. So, I grew up idolizing Lynn Swann because I was, in the 70s as a kid. He was catching passes and Super Bowls and stuff, and it was great. But this is just a strange starting over. Sometimes it's what you need to do. And I think that's been USC's biggest problem is they really haven't started over. Like, they've kept...
Not a full...
No. Like, with the athletic directors, the last 3 of them have all been football players, And at least Mike Garrett was in the athletic department, but you're not changing anything because really the people that run the athletic department stay the same. You just change figureheads. And so that's not changing things, And I think you've been doing this long enough and enough people I've talked to, there probably needs some, I know a lot of those people, friends with a lot of the people in the athletic department, but I really feel like there needs to be some change. And not getting a sitting athletic director ensures that there's really not going to be much change because you're getting someone that is just coming in and learning what you do, not coming in and changing what you do. And even on the coaching side, they've had some crazy coaching change, but you've got Pete Carroll and you got his assistant and you got his assistant and you got his assistant, like that you haven't really made changes there at all. So I know that Lynn Swann's saying, change, change isn't bad. Like, I think the way this team is going, the athletic department is going, change would probably be a good thing. And I think that's what USC's been trying to avoid at all costs is changing because you bring in somebody who is a sitting athletic director, I really feel he's going to come in and go, what the heck is going on here? Change this, change this, change this. And I don't know. I mean, that it's like, I think we said this before, your tooth is hurting, but I don't want to go to the dentist to find out I need a root canal, because you just don't want to know. But you really kind of need a root canal, so it's a good idea to bring someone in to come and tell you, yes, you need a root canal. Let's make some changes here.
If you never go to the doctor, nothing can ever be wrong. That's my philosophy.
You have a whole different philosophy.
But who comes in and makes those decisions? Because obviously if a new athletic director came in to be like, this is weird, we need to get rid of all of this, who's going to hire that person to make that change? Like, where does the top start to make changes top down?
It's all about power. And I mean, the people that are in the athletic department now don't want to give up their power. No one ever wants to give up power. No one's like, you know what, it'd be better if I just backed away from this and gave up stuff. Like Clay Helton, for example. Clay Helton goes and takes more responsibility going and doing the play calling. Like, you go for more. You never like, it's better if I back away from this. No one. It's just the human nature. No one tries to give up power ever. So in the USC community, there are certain people who have power in the athletic department. They don't want to give that up. It would take someone above them, which would be probably a new president, and that person has to say, all right, we've got to clean house with who's in this position, this position, this position, who's helping make these decisions as far as boosters or whatever it may be. And that's hard to do because you have your boosters that have given, a $2 million donation or whatever it may be, and they want to have their say. Well, I've given all this money. I should have a say in it. There needs to be someone has to come in and say, sorry, it ain't happening. You're done. I don't care if the faucet's turned off as far as your donation is going. We have to make a change. And does USC really want to do that? Because what they want is that what Max Nikias's directive was fundraising, rather than the football team necessarily being good. Now, I know you guys want, all the fans who are watching this want the football team to be good, and that may help with fundraising. However, fundraising came first with this recent president and the people that are in power there. So you would have to make that change. That would have to be the change. Like, no, fundraising is not as important. We want to be good in this, other than, they're good in academics right now. You're good in raising money. You're getting all these new buildings, all that stuff. So do you want to change that? As a president coming in, how important is football to you? And that's the thing I've said a couple times is, like, it doesn't seem like this coaching staff, as it was constructed prior to Monday, was going to win a national championship. I said that, during the Utah game. But does the administration, is that their directive? I mean, you can get by with being a good team. You can, as long as you're a top 25 team, you still get people to donate money. Does it really matter if you're a national championship team? That becomes the question for the athletic department and the people above them.
Yeah, I think power. I mean, your points on power are right on, and it comes that way when you're hiring a coach too. Because when Pete Carroll was in the athletic department, he had a lot of power. Mm-hmm. They haven't really hired people that would have a lot. They're people that are kind of like happy to be there. Like, maybe not. The last 3 coaches they've hired, their resumes haven't been up to snuff as far as like being the USC head coach, I would say. So if you went out and got, I'm not saying you would, but like, if you bring in a Nick Saban, he's going to come in and run things. They haven't. It didn't look like they've wanted to go out and get someone who's going to come in and run things. Chris Peterson would have done that. Someone's going to come in and run their own system. And I think for USC fans, the most important thing is you want the team to win. I'm not sure the way they were hiring that was the number one priority. It was more about kind of keeping the status quo and hoping that they win.
Yeah, you look at UCLA, you bring in Chip Kelly. You bring in Chip Kelly, you're getting his system. You're not going to come in and say, all right, we really want you, Chip, but we want you to run a pro-style offense. We want the running back to carry the ball 40 times and the deep balls and stuff. No, Chip Kelly's coming in. He's going to run his own type of thing. He's going to run the organization. It's not going to be people. Whereas Clay Helton, being a first-time coach and still learning, he's going to take more directive from people above him. And Clay can learn the job and he can fight for that power. But we've heard things in the past where Clay would want something else in the department. And they're like, yeah, we don't really want to spend money on that. And whereas Nick Saban says, I want this.
Right.
You're like, all right. And because Nick Saban is the most powerful person in Alabama, the entire state. I mean, he's the highest paid person in the state of Alabama. He's the most powerful person.
Yeah.
What he
More
says
than the
goes.
governor.
Yeah, what he says goes there. And when you win, you have that. And when you're bringing in all the money that he's bringing in, then you get that cachet. And now sometimes there's the argument about whether a guy like Joe Paterno, him having that much power is good because you have stuff happen off the field, and not just that situation, but other, like Urban Meyer at Florida, where he had power there. So then stuff happened off the field, and he had first say over some other people. So there's a question there between ethics and power and all that, and it's a very deep discussion. I had an ethics class, so we didn't know all these type of things, but that's what's going on with USC. When you have, who is going to have the power, and the people that they're in power currently don't want to give it up. No one wants to give it up.
Yeah. To transition into questions, we've said that it seems like Clay Helton will be coming back next year based on what Lynn Swann has said, still up in the air. But
that's my personal feeling. You guys might feel differently.
Yes, and so we have a question from Rick who says, what good assistants would come to SC when Clay Helton would be on the hot seat? So if he cleaned house, who would actually come?
Right, and I think that's something that comes. I think it's a valid question for sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying these last 4 games matter a lot, because if it's a weak finish and Clay Helton returns, then it's more hot seedy, right? Like it's more like, people don't feel like he's going to be around much longer. If it's a stronger finish, then it's like, it's a little bit easier. And then obviously it's going to depend on, is he only getting a running back coach? And what kind of money would he have available? Is Lynn Swann fully behind it? So if Clay Helton wants to go out and hire an amazing running back coach, he can spend money on it, or does he want to promote from within? And we've seen too much of the promote from within, but not really reaching to get assistance. And is it because of that's what Clay Helton wants, or is it he wants to be familiar, or is it because the purse strings are tight, things like that. So I think there's a lot that kind of goes into it. But I feel like USC is a destination that if you're an assistant coach that can make a name for himself, you feel like you're really good. It's something that it's appealing because we mentioned this before. Talking to Dylan McCullough, he was great at Indiana, but his recruiting at Indiana was very difficult. He tried to get the guys that the SEC wanted, and they would still go to the SEC. And then afterwards tell them, "Oh man, I made a mistake. I wish I came to you." And he said, "I come to USC, and you're like picking and choosing as opposed to like you don't have to convince anybody to come." So there's still, yes, I get it, but there's still a lot of advantages to being at USC. And even if you only feel you're going to be there for a year, you might be able to make a name for yourself and be able to build that resume up even more and maybe stick around if there is some sort of change.
If you put a large amount of money out there, if you put if it's $1.5 million or whatever, like Dave Aranda, that type of money that you're giving to an assistant, then that tells the person like, oh, well, they're investing in this. I think they're going in the right direction. So a lot of it comes down to money. Where if you try to lowball, like, yeah, we want to give $300,000 to the offense coordinator. I'm like, why would I take that for one? Because it seems like you're not investing in the program. The coach might be on the hot seat. So yeah, there's no reason why I would come in and do that. You're going to get somebody. If that was the case, you would get somebody who's like a retread or someone who's like, well, I can make things work and I can get my career going back in the right direction type of thing. Like you get like a Bob Connolly type of hire, whereas someone like is not currently coaching, is like someone who wants to try to get back and start going in the right direction. Or Neil Callaway, because he was out of the game for a couple of years before went to Western Kentucky, I believe, after UAB. So it's that type of thing where someone's trying to work their way back up rather than like you have a young hotshot that's trying to work their way up.
Yeah. In the same vein, Chris wants to know, how much do you think the other administrative issues, new president, lawsuits in the school is starting to limit the athletic department's willingness to make a change in football?
I think it's a huge part of it. I think, everything else that's going on, it's like one other thing you don't want to have to deal with. But with the team being 4-4 and all the fans, it's like my feeling is they didn't want to have to deal with changing coaches after the season. But what you're seeing on the field is sort of like forcing the issue. And fans are outraged. And I just feel like they didn't want to have to deal with this because there's so many other things they're dealing with. But it's an issue that's popping up now because of all the clamor about it. So yeah, I feel like it's a huge part of it. And if they finish, like Shotgun said, if they lose their last 4 games, then it's sort of like, look, I know you don't want to deal with this, but here's a mess. You have to deal with it. I know you would rather wait till next year to deal with this, but you're going to have to if something like some disaster like that happened.
Yeah,
which I don't think will happen.
I don't think it'll happen either, but it's out there.
It's out there. Corey says, speaking as a member of the Trojan Athletic Fund Committee, who has 8 season tickets, who travels from Vegas for each game, what would you suggest to someone like me who financially supports this team, who is losing the motivation to continue my financial support?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, call in and talk to your representatives and stuff. I mean, that's always up to you. Like, it's not, that's your personal thing. And there's a lot of people that get a lot of joy from watching USC football. And I feel like a lot of the people we've talked to, some of that joy is gone, not necessarily just because of the product on the field, but it's been a tough, this renovation was pushed through. It's tough. And
a lot of people being moved seats and stuff. I mean, there's tailgating space taken away and stuff. So, like, just the game day experience, which is obviously what someone like Corey comes into town for. Like, you don't just come to town to see the game because you can watch that at home. You come for the experience of going to the game, and a lot of that has been changed. Now, whether it's good or bad, that's up for debate, but it's changed. And a lot of people have been upset with the changes, whether it's been your seats being moved or you're temporarily being moved. It's kind of a lot of weird stuff with that.
The seats being moved is a big deal because people become friends with the people that they sit around. And it's like you're in the same donor group, and like go to each other's weddings. Like that's something that has been really important for a lot of the USC fans we talk to. And so I get it. I mean, Corey, it's tough, but obviously that's your call, what you want to do. But I would definitely call the representatives and let them know, hey, this is what I do, and see how well you're treated. Hopefully you're treated well, and they'll work with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, one person taking away their tickets doesn't do anything to them. It's all about the big money boosters, is where because some people have said if we just don't show up, then ticket sales don't make up that much of the revenue, actually. So it's more the donations that become the revenue booster for programs. So if you enjoy going to the game, don't go to the game because someone says, if we don't show up, that'll make them change things. Won't necessarily. I mean, declining attendance has been a trend throughout college football for the last 4 or 5 years. So the administration will just be like, oh, that's what's happening all over the country.
It's definitely being noticed, though. It's not like it's going unnoticed. I mean, it's not just the butts in the seats and the concessions and parking and all that kind of stuff, but the advertising that goes on inside the stadium. That's Fox Sports Properties, like all of that stuff is impacted. So I think that's why it's not just the product on the field, but when the fans are sort of like revolting, it gets back to the athletic director and all that. Like, hey, we're not going to pay this much money for a sponsorship of this because there's only this many people and things. And you can use it's a construction year as an excuse. And, it certainly has made things more difficult. But what's the attendance going to keep, doing going forward if the team is still playing like that? I think you're going to see, kind of similar results there. So, Corey, I feel for you. I mean, but that's a very personal choice. You got to do what you want to do. I mean, you get joy out of it still. You love. I mean, do it. I mean, that's why you're probably here watching this, because you really love talking and watching USC football.
It's true. We have a question from Mike, who says, I always hear that T. Martin is a good recruiter, but what is it about him? What characteristics make a good recruiter, and what does he have that other coaches don't?
He relates really well with the players. I mean, just having that communication, being able to talk with people, him having played for a national championship, winning a national championship, those type of things, playing in the NFL, all those things that players want going forward, that helps. You can draw on your experience that way. He's also young enough that he can still relate with the players versus, a guy like Neil Callaway or, some of the older coaches, it's a little bit more, it's different times than when Neil Callaway first started coaching, obviously, or when he was playing. So those type of things help out, definitely. And it's just being personable and relatable and being willing to, I talked to Kanechi Udeze about recruiting before, and he said one of the things he does is, in his wife, it's can disrupt the family flow, but he said his wife knows that if he gets a phone call, he's going to answer it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when it is. If a recruit is calling him, he's going to answer it. Wow. And just being available like that, and players appreciate that type of thing. It's just making those connections. Every top recruit you talk to who's got 50 schools looking at them, the thing it comes down to is relationships.
Yeah. It's a relationship. It's a big one. I'm sorry.
No, and that's why coaching changes, whether it's a position coach. Like, people are like, oh, they just got rid of the receivers coach or whatever it is. In the offseason, you make that change. The receiver coach goes to a different school. It's huge for that position group. Like, you lose, like somebody like Dante Williams from Arizona. When he left there, that's huge for their recruiting, because Dante Williams is a good recruiter just overall, but also he was really personable. He was the one that was recruiting guys like Greg Johnson. That's why Greg Johnson was committed to Arizona, because of him. When he leaves, it's like, okay, what else do I like about this school?
USC,
who else am I still? And that's why it's good to have multiple coaches recruiting players. So if you have someone get fired or leave or get a better job, whatever it may be, then you can have someone else fill that void. But it's all about the relationships, really.
Yeah, and you can tell, because Nelson Aguilar came to practice on Tuesday. You always see former players of T always come back. And he's also really charismatic. If you look at the beginning of the scrum that he had, everyone walked up to T and was kind of silent. No one wanted to ask the first question about, like, okay, this is going to be a rough media scrum. And T just kind of smiles and goes, I feel like this is a press conference. Should I start? And he's funny. Like, even when he's talking about his essential, demotion, it was just, you can see where the charisma plays a part in recruiting as well.
Yeah, and I think all those are important factors, but you have to work it. It's a job. You have to put some of your national championship ego winning aside, right? And go, this 16-year-old who thinks he's hot shit or whatever, like I say that on the show,
FCC is going to get us.
And I'm going to take his call in the middle of the night, or, talk to him about what this happened or what this happened. And it's not easy to do. And trust me, there's a lot of coaches that don't want to do it. I'm not dealing with some 16-year-old punk that blah, blah, like, you're dealing with every single one of those, and a lot more than you signed because you got to talk to, and it's a lot of work, and you have to have the right attitude about it, and you have to check some of your ego aside. Like, you are way more accomplished than this kid maybe will ever be. Most of them, like some of them are going to be like stars, but a lot of them won't, and you still have to act like they are the best, and you're like grateful to just be talking to them, and you build those relationships by doing that. I mean, Ed Orgeron. He's, to this day, anyone you talk to him has ever been recruited by him. They love, there's something about those kind of personalities. There's a little bit of politician, there's a little bit of, but it's real, it's caring. Like, they remember who your dad was or who your sister was or if she got sick or whatever. All that stuff kind of plays into it, but working at it is a huge portion of it. And there's coaches that are like, I want to coach, I don't want to recruit. So a lot of it's your attitude to doing it.
Yeah, effort and attitude is huge in anything you do, but in recruiting especially, because you have to put in that work. You have to, just like you said, you have to be willing to, after an official, a weekend where 20 kids from Mater Dei come in, you have to be willing to be like, all right, we need to call all these kids the next day or whatever it may be, because you have to be willing to go, I don't really want to go to a high school game tonight. It's Friday night. I'd rather just watch, if they're a big baseball, I'd rather just watch the World Series or whatever. No, you got to go out and do, make the effort, you have to, can you keep those connections with all those high school coaches? When USC went to Arizona, when USC played at Arizona this year, we saw Keely was out to see.
Brian Ellis was at the game I was at.
Kenichi Udeze was at the game I was at. I talked to him for a minute. He said that he had been to I think 6 schools that day. I talked to Brian Ellis a couple of days later. I was like, how many schools did you hit up? He's like 6 to 8 on the Friday. So it's not only just okay. Well, there's a USC quarterback commit. All right, we're going to go see him. No, you got to pop into all these other schools like, oh, who's the next guy you guys got coming up?
Yeah, it might be for something for 2 years from now. It might not be for today.
And you might not be at that school in 2 years. So if your career trajectory is on the take, but you still have to build those connections and stuff, and it might not be your position. You might, let me take some notes, and you pass along the other. It's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not an easy thing. It's a constant, and we talk. That's why we have recruiting coverage 24/7. 365 days of the year, because it's a year-long thing.
It is. Yeah.
And coaches hate it. They love their vacation time with their families and stuff. I talk with, I'm really tight in the baseball community. The college baseball coaches, their month off is December. One of the coaches from San Diego State's getting married. I was like, oh, when's the wedding going on? December. It's the only time we can do it. I was like, you don't want to do it? And he's like, I can't. We have to recruit the rest of the year. That's that's only because there's an NCAA mandated dead period during December. The dead periods, coaches love the dead periods.
Alrighty, we're moving on. Ryan says, what's the chance, not you, Ryan, Ryan, what's the chance that Clay continues to call plays with the same scheme next year and simply hires a new running back coach and wide receivers coach? He was actually asked about this yesterday, and he didn't give a resounding no that he wouldn't call plays next year. He said he likes calling plays and that he has the itch to do so.
Yeah, he said basically why he took over was, I had the itch, and I wanted to get used to being a head coach first, but then I've always wanted to call plays. So then the question is like, if you say that now, when you have a meeting with offensive coordinator candidates in the future, if T. Martin does leave, then you have to explain that, because otherwise they're gonna be like, why am I coming in? I'm gonna be a lame coach here anyways. I'm not gonna get to call the plays. Yeah, so he'll have to explain that in conversations, but he made it sound like he still wants to call plays going forward. Yeah. And he said, what did he say? I want to bet. I'm going to bet on myself.
Think so, something like that.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
So.
I think still a lot of it's going to depend on if they finish strong. I think that's more likely that he would do something like that. If it's not as strong of a finish and there's more pressure to make a bigger change, then that could be a bigger change where you bring in a different offensive coordinator who has his own offense. So. And
I think also it depends on the candidates you can bring in. If Jed Fish, who had really good offense at UCLA, is now with the Rams, if he's available and you go to him, you're like, I really love your offense. You come in and call the plays.
Yeah.
Whereas you
come in and bring your offense, not just call the plays.
But you get to your 4th or 5th or 17th candidate because you've been turned down or whatever it may be. You don't have the money that you want to go out for guys, and you're like scratched off all these names. You're like, all right, well, we can bring you in for this much money. I'm still going to call the plays. So.
Yeah. Jed Fish went to UCLA knowing Jim Moore was on the hot seat, and so he's already done that. So it happens.
We have a question from Linda who says, how does the team seem to be responding to the changes and culture this week since the announcements? How are the players reacting?
I mean, you talked about the offensive linemen seemed fairly positive. It just seemed like no one was like down
business
about
as usual.
it. Yeah, it was kind of business as usual.
I think all the players responded. The players I talked to, I asked basically everyone the same thing about that. It's like, how's the locker room? How are you guys responding? Everyone seemed very positive about it. And, they think they got a little bit of an energy boost, the offense as a whole, from the changes. And like I said, you can either go up or down. But I talked to Imam Marshall about it yesterday, and he said that, he's like, I think that they're doing well. Toa Lobanon was expecting that, he was hoping they could blow out Oregon State. He's like, we haven't had a blowout, so we would like to do that. Now, obviously, that's tough to do. You got to put points on the board, so we'll see if they can do that. He wasn't predicting that or anything, but he said that was something we would like to do because we haven't had one. So I think that if you're talking about that, I think you feel positive about things. If you're talking about a blowout, rather than being like, it's going to be a really tough game.
We got to survive up in the Corvallis. It's tough to play.
Yeah. And I think we are seeing more physicality. They have done both practices this week. They have done 1-versus-1s, tackling. It did a 9.
Some changes.
Physicality. They're not doing no pads November. So that at least is positive. They're trying to, I guess, rejuvenate themselves in that sense, physicality, which I think is good. Tester Troy wanted to know, have they made changes in practice to get it right, or do they still blow over plays even if they don't get it right? They actually did do some plays over again. You actually heard one of the coaches scream, "We're doing it again!" And
that was on Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, they had a screen pass to Bayless, and Dominic Davis actually came up and just stripped the ball from Bayless, and they were just not happy about that. And they made Bayless do it again, and Bayless got it right. But so we are seeing some changes, some new physicality. So we'll see how that actually works. But they're not giving up on themselves, which is good.
And I think I owe you guys lunch. I mean, I usually buy you guys lunch anyway. Because
hey, that's right.
No pads November. So I said there weren't going to be pads this week, and they were. So, I mean, but I was right, though. If they were going to continue with the normal tradition, this would have been the no pads November week because it's the last 4 games. So, but because the seniors stepped up or whatever they did, that's going on there. But I always buy you guys lunch anyway, so it's not like a big deal. It would have been cool if you bought me lunch.
Now, let's clarify. Like, no pads November was... they basically were in shells the entirety of the thing, or in just helmets and stuff.
Yeah.
So now it's not like they're going to go full pad. They're going to be tackling every single practice. But there is a difference. Someone asked me on this on Twitter, I think yesterday. It was like, is there really a difference between wearing, pads and helmets versus not? And yes, you've talked to the players. You forget that there's a different mentality when you attack the field, knowing that you're going to have pads on. You're not necessarily going to go full. You're not doing Oklahoma drill every single practice or anything. You're not going to do anything like that. They may not even tackle the rest of the season. However, having you're going to get the thud. You're going to get the pop instead of with helmets and the spiders that they call them, the little tiny pads. You're just going to go up and tap people. So now you're actually going to thud people. You're going to get a little contact. That contact always helps a little bit. It helps with the mentality. It also helps with, the injury thing. They're really banged up on injury-wise, but there's been the talk about whether, if you tackle more, does that help with injuries? Because now your body's used to that contact a little bit more. I think this definitely helps. Just getting the thud is better than not at all.
And I think with the linemen, it's a big deal. And when you got Tim Drevno taking over, I think it's better for him that he gets 4 practices in full pads as opposed to if he took over and had no practice in full pads. Like I'm sure there's stuff he would have liked to do that he couldn't have done.
And now you have the one-on-ones where you do an offense, defense. Now you talk about your hand placement. When you got to get it up underneath the pad or whatever it may be, you talk about that versus, you can show that. You can do it physically rather than just talking about it.
Yeah.
I got some questions over here.
Yeah. Most of Periscope is like
take over, guys.
Requests for what's it called? Requests for different coaches and different coaching ideas.
Yeah, Elijah asked, what do you think of Jack Del Rio replacing Clay Helton? He will bring physicality at the very least. Clay Helton's still the head coach. So
yes.
There isn't an opening.
Right.
There's not currently an opening.
Right.
But there is an opening at running backs coach now.
True.
Technically. So right now, Neil Callaway's gone. So Tim Drevno has taken over. He was the run game coordinator, running backs coach. He's actually coaching both positions now. Toa said it was it was interesting and kind of fun to be in meetings with the running backs as well now. But Mike Goff, has been with USC for about 6 years now, I want to say. 5 or 6 years.
And he came in and coached the offensive line when Clay got the interim job and fired everybody and stuff.
So he's been as a grad assistant. He's been with it as a analyst, some different positions with the team, but he's been one of them. Former NFL player, had like a 10-year, 12-year career with the NFL, with the Chargers. He is helping out as well. So it's basically Goff and Drevno coaching both the linemen and the running backs. So they're kind of tag teaming those two positions together. But Jorge asked, I know we need a running backs coach. What do y'all think about Kennedy Polamalu? I know he has ties to USC, but he has knowledge to offense and maybe can help. I don't know. You know more about Kennedy.
Yeah, no, he was. I thought he was a good running backs coach. We just don't know. I mean, there could be much bigger shakeup, but yeah, that would be an interesting name. He's a familiar one. I know people are like, get on me, like, don't hire people with USC ties. If you want to hire him as a running back coach, I don't care. I'm just,
You're more about the head coach. Don't hire a head coach with it.
Yeah.
If the coaching changes were a committee decision, who was on the committee?
I mean, I think there's a lot of people right now, but
Which
I think
is probably part of the problem.
yes, like that's part of the issue. But
everyone thinks that they have, like, I deserve a say in this. I think that's part of USC's
there's
problem.
boosters, board of trustees, like the Rick Carusos of the world. All those. There's a lot of people that have power. Lynn Swann. Everyone in the athletic department. I mean, it's kind of a muddled.
The flow chart is not here. It's here. There's kind of a cluster all together at the top, and everyone's kind of like trying to push their way up it rather than having a clear delineation of where everyone should be.
And I think when Max Nikias was there, it was pretty clear. Now there's influencers for sure because he answers to the board and all that kind of stuff. But now there's really no president. I think Dr. Austin she's not interested in becoming the full-time president. So it's like I don't think USC will have a president until probably like June or something. Like it's going to take a little while. Like we might hear about who, but I don't think it's going to be something from people I've talked to. I don't think it's something that's happening anytime soon, which is another reason why it's like, don't really want to deal with a coaching change right now. So that's part of all going together.
That makes sense.
Richard or Ricard, do you think if USC offered Coach O a return to Trojan Nation, would he? No.
Hells no.
We've gotten that question, and call me crazy. I want Lane Kiffin back.
No,
you
stop
are
with
crazy.
We're not talking about I feel I think we have to talk about what this team is now. We haven't even talked about Oregon State yet.
I know.
But granted, Coach O has proven that he's a head coach now.
No,
so
yes.
that would follow into at least that you're getting a proven head coach. However, and if it was straight,
he was done wrong. But
if you were looking at the resume and you got a coach with that resume, that's a good hire. Is he coming back though? No, he didn't. He felt disrespected by the decision and how it went. He's also from Louisiana. Getting to coach at LSU is a huge deal for him. So no, that's probably his dream job.
Yeah,
I would assume that is his dream job, being from Louisiana.
He would have loved it to be at USC, and all signs point to they should. If they would have just kept him, you wouldn't have hired Sark. You wouldn't have let Chris Peterson go to Washington. All these bad things happened by not, retaining him. And obviously the USC team would be better off. Was he the man for the job? I'm not saying, but they would have been much better off keeping him than going out and hiring Sark and allowing Chris Peterson to go to Washington. That's the worst of all worlds. So, but he's there now. He loves it. And I think, USC fans, you should probably be rooting for him against Alabama this Saturday. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, it will be. Any other questions, Chaka?
Yeah, I got a couple more questions. Why don't USC recruit more dual-threat athletic QB types like Deshaun Watson? Deshaun Watson's from my home city. But Matt Fink is dual threat.
Yeah.
Jack Sears is dual threat. Sam Darnold was dual threat. I don't know what you want. And comparing him to Deshaun Watson, that Sam Darnold is similar to Deshaun Watson as far as running, how much he runs, and that type of thing. You're not talking about getting an option quarterback. So if you're going to bring up Deshaun Watson, USC's recruited those type of guys. So I don't know what exactly you're looking for there. NJE. SC needs a hip, young offensive guru, Bryce says. How can I apply? He said experience is overrated at SC anyways, right?
He's got a very good point. Do you know the fight song?
We have 6 minutes left. I'm sure we should probably talk about Oregon State, maybe. Ryan, what do you think is the biggest problem that USC faces with Oregon State?
I mean, this is a team that's flying high right now. No, it was 4 years since they won a road game. They hadn't won a Pac-12 game since 2016. I think it was the Civil War against Oregon. And if you watch that game, it was going on the same time as the USC game, and I think it was on Pac-12 Network too. But they were down 31-3 in the third quarter. It was 24-3. Colorado runs a 74-yard touchdown to start the second half. They're up 31-3 against at home. Colorado's at home, and they lose. How is that even possible? That Oregon State rattles off. They bring Jake Luton back, who started the season against Ohio State, gets dinged, gets a concussion, then he gets an ankle injury when he comes back in the next game. So he's been out. He was a limited guy. Comes in the second half, wins Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week for the second half, throwing for over 300 yards. They scored, I think, 4 of their last 5 drives. I think they had to punt once. And this is where they showed their mettle here. They scored at the end of the game. They're down 6, 30 seconds left, throw a touchdown pass. Amazing. All you got to do is kick the extra point to win. And they shanked the extra point. They shanked the extra point. Now, anyone in Vegas would say 100% Colorado's going to win this game. All this comeback is amazing, but you blew your chance to win. And they still won in overtime. So this is a team that's, finding themselves a little bit. Jonathan Smith is a former Oregon State player. If you remember the TJ Hushmanzadas and the Chad Ochocinco Johnson years with Dennis Erickson, where they wiped the floor with Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, he's the quarterback, so he's an Oregon State guy through and through. Did they turn the corner with this last win on the road? We've seen them go up and down. I mean, they gave up 49 points to Cal at home a few weeks ago, and Cal's got one of the worst offenses so it's really been a team that's all over the place. But I think Jake Luton's a really good quarterback. He's not real mobile, but he can sling it. Jamar Jefferson, was it Jermar? The kid from Narbonne is really good. It's not a very good defense, so USC's offensive changes should probably work no matter what. But who knows? This is a weird place to play. It's dangerous. The way USC's played this year, any team can be dangerous, and this is just. You caught Utah when they were on upswing, and man, you saw it. Arizona State, you felt like they could turn the corner, and they did against USC. Oregon State kind of has, so you have to go out and make a statement. I think they can pound them, but this is not a terrible team. There's just they got some weak spots, but they're a team that has a little bit of confidence now.
Yeah, I knew that they won the game, but I didn't see how it played out. Ryan told me that they were up 31-3. That Colorado was up 31-3 at one point. My response was,
in the third quarter.
Shit, what?
In the third quarter.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. How does Colorado lose it? I don't even know. I haven't seen the 60-minute version or anything. That's one I've been looking for, actually. I might have to record that just to see what the hell happened in that game. But yeah, you get confidence from a win like that. You're like, oh, we can beat anybody now. We came back from 28 down. We can play with anybody, especially USC. They just lost to Arizona State. They lost to Utah. Yeah, we can play. You get confidence. You're at home. That crowd could grow because of that game last week. And Corvallis can be a nasty place to play,
yes,
both weather-wise and fan-wise, if the fans are into it. So I know Dan said they were playing the crowd noise. Dan's like, if they hear the crowd noise that loud, then something's gone really wrong.
He said, start the buses, boys.
But Corvallis, when they're good, they are super supportive because it's a tight-knit community. The baseball team is one of the toughest places to play because they're a national championship caliber program. Their fans will get out there and they'll be pretty nasty at folks too. So they'll tell you about everybody in your family and everything else. So they do really well, that type of thing. So USC could be in a hostile environment. So getting ahead early would be really big for them.
Yes.
They're coming out. I know there's been offense changes, but the thing is USC's been good at the start of games for the majority of the season this year. They can do that again or their scripted plays or whatever it may be and then make the adjustments as it goes rather than getting out ahead of Utah, getting out ahead of Texas, and then giving up 31 straight points. I don't think Oregon State's that caliber team that is going to be like, all right, we're down by 2 touchdowns, doesn't matter. We can score on this team. I think they're, because they don't have they have confidence from last week, they don't have confidence built up from several games. They're not going to have the confidence to come back in a game like that. So getting up early could be important for them and taking care of the ball, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, when you turn the ball over and you lose 19 yards and give the ball to them on the 3-yard line on a weird speed option pitch with your left hand, why that play was called, I don't know. Yeah. Then it's going to be difficult for the defense. You put them in a bad position. Now it's 14-7. They score again. It's 21-7. You're like, what's going on here against Arizona State? USC rallied in that game, but on the road they have not shown that they're willing to rally ever. They don't. When momentum gets going against them on the road, they have not shown the heart to come back in games. So they need to get up early and play well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think morale for both teams, it's going to be interesting to watch for both. Is Oregon State higher because of that win? Is USC higher because of the changes? I don't know.
Yeah, and worth mentioning, we didn't mention injuries at all, but Cam Smith essentially said that he will play against Oregon State. Clancy Pendergast said that's a huge boost, obviously, because you have a 3-year starter in Clancy's system back. It looks like Marvell Tell will play on Saturday. We haven't gotten a full update yet. as well as John Houston. He was a little gimpy, but Helton said he will play. And then JT Daniels, of course, has cleared concussion protocol. He will be the starting quarterback on Saturday. We have multiple questions wondering, quick take about Jack Sears versus JT. How do you feel about the fact that JT will start on Saturday?
I think JT, has earned the right to start, by winning the competition early. Now, if he struggles, if you want to bring in Jack Sears, I wouldn't see anything wrong with that. I think Jack Sears is playing, he showed that he could play with a lot of confidence. After that 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, when you got that scramble and then they started things rolling, I think he played with a lot of confidence, and he's somebody where, if you feel like JT's not getting the job done, you could go to him. And then there's a huge controversy after that. But I think JT will be fine. I just think they need to, the similar play calls that they had last week for JT. Like, don't try to make him do too much. He's still a freshman.
Yeah. I agree with it. And then if you're our buddy Max Brown, former USC quarterback, he's sat in his chair a couple of times. His video this week breaking down what Jack Sears did was really good if you want to check it out. But basically what he said, what USC did, they cut the field in half. So all of the routes for every play was going to be on one half of the field. And most of it looked like it was to the USC sideline. So he wasn't going to have to go here, here, here. His reads were over here. And so a lot of his success, he was pretty efficient, 20 of 28. They really kept things limited. So that's one of the reasons why they probably wouldn't want to start. I don't know how many times you can do that when people figure it out. Like, we're just only going to cover this one side of the field, but they really limited things for him. But then there was a play where he gets chased out of the pocket, like everyone's on the left, he gets chased out of the pocket right, has to throw out of bounds because there's nobody on that side of the field. So there's some disadvantages in doing that, but USC did limit things for him, and I wouldn't have an issue with them trying to, not maybe that much, but limiting things for JT Daniels because I feel like when they put him out there, there's no limitations like just go out and win it. So it'll be curious to see what the offense looks like. Does it look like it's more of a designed offense to help the quarterback succeed, or is it just like open it up and let him, make any read he wants and throw it anywhere? Yeah,
we actually broke down a play on our film study, which will be coming out, I think, later today, where the first sack that Jack Sears took, I believe, there's 3 routes to the left. There's nobody to the right. They keep everybody in to block on the right side. But he's looking to the left, and he quickly looks back to the rush. His head turns really quickly, and he tries to get out of the pocket. And you saw later in the game where that kind of eased down, where I think that now the second game they can start doing more stuff where you have, routes where you have to turn your head to look and see where the second or third option is. So I think he's gotten more comfortable with that. But you did see, similar to what Max was pointing out, where, he looked on the left at his routes and then immediately was like, oh, guys, there's guys coming. Even though he had a pretty clean pocket at that time, he tried to take off a little early because he was antsy as a first-time starter, as a redshirt freshman. So that kind of happened with him, and I thought he settled in later where he was in the pocket. He didn't have to rush out as quickly. And I think you saw the same thing with JT Daniels early in the season where, he would make one read or, and suddenly he's looking for an escape pod or, a way to get out or whatever it may be. Get an escape pod. Just press the button and you fly out there.
Yeah. Alrighty. Do we want to do predictions? Score predictions?
Oh yeah. This is preview. What's today?
This Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, Ryan. What day is it? We don't know.
I hadn't really thought about this. I think USC's favored by 14.
Whew, that's a big number.
It's a pretty big number. Yeah. I kind of feel like USC wins by like 10 in this one. So I think I'm going to do like USC like 38-28 or something. I think something like that. I think USC is going to put up some points, but Oregon State will score some too. But I just think USC will have too much, but not more than 2 touchdowns too much is my thought.
Yeah, I'm going way over 2 touchdowns. I'm like 45-14 in this game. I think some changes. I think they're ready to come out and show some people stuff. Toa said he thinks he's going to have a perfect snapping game. He didn't want to jinx it, but he said he might have a perfect snapping game. I think the offensive line's ready to go now.
It's 16 now, apparently.
Oh, is it 16 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big spread, but
so it's going that. I mean, that's going the direction you
That's just what people are betting, though.
Yeah, that's true. Was Toa upset that Keely made that gif of him?
Put it on the private board so it wouldn't go around too far.
I think Dan tweeted it out.
I know, and I was like, I'm not retweeting this. But if you don't know what we're talking about, I ended up putting together a GIF of every single snap from the game. From my point of view on the field, you can pretty much see where it is, and it was pretty inconsistent against Arizona State.
It's a pretty wide range of balls. There were some that were here, but there was certainly not the majority of them were there.
No, it was interesting for sure.
So was Toa mad at Keely for that, or no?
I didn't mention it.
Oh.
Sorry, didn't ask him.
Toa,
I didn't throw him under the bus like Ryan does.
Tweet at Keely is my name.
Why am I? This whole week, Ryan has just thrown me under the bus on the podcast, on everything. Thanks, Ryan.
Well, I sort of got called out by Clay Helton after practice, and then I kind of...
So blame Shotgun.
And then under the bus. Then I threw him under the bus.
When in doubt, blame Shotgun.
Yeah,
That's my life motto.
I don't care. They can come at me if they want. I got a couple of quick questions, last ones.
Do it.
YPO boy, USC usually closes strong on recruiting every year. Clay Helton is still the coach. Does it still happen? I think there's a little bit of uneasiness there with his situation, which is why at the end of the season, maybe Lynn Swann says he's definitely going to be back or whatever it may be. And then finalizing those coaches, where you're going to replace coaches, if T. Martin does leave, who replaces him, that type of thing. The quicker you can do that, the better for recruiting, especially with the early signing date now. Frank asks, with all the great athletes on the team this year, how can we be so boring? Or how can they be so boring? Offense is boring, and defense, no fumble recoveries, interceptions. I think the fumble recoveries, interceptions are partly just a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
Like there was one play I showed Keely in the game that Talanoa Hufanga, part of a 3-play sequence where he was phenomenal, where he made a play in the backfield, he knocked down a pass, and then he tackled a guy for like a 2-yard gain on 3rd and 8 or something. Just a ridiculous series for him. But the ball he bats down, Jordan Asafa got blocked, and he ends up going to the ground. And if he would have gone to the ground and just laid flat on his back, the ball would have came right into his face, and he would have caught it for an interception while laying on the ground. But instead, like he falls, and he's kind of on his side instead of falling straight on his back. Like that's how random that play could have been. And USC, early in the year, they were leading the nation in tip passes without getting an interception or whatever it may be. So a little bit of luck. It helps when you have if you had 3, defensive captains at each level, that would help. They didn't have any of those last game with Tell, Smith, and Port Augustine out.
The offense has to be less boring, and I think that's what Clay Helton's going to try to do. And it's not, not blaming T. Martin for it, but just in general, line play, everything. It just wasn't very exciting. They had some spurts, the second quarter against Colorado, or the end of the. What was it? What was the line? It was at Arizona State when they score like right before halftime and then score like right afterwards and stuff. Like there was like a 5-minute stretch that they, between halftimes that was great, But
first quarter Utah.
Yeah, but it's just so many. It's like one quarter is good and like 3 quarters.
So
stink.
isolated.
Yeah. So you need it to be kind of exciting the whole time. There were some really cool plays in the Arizona State game.
The trick plays, both of them that they tried worked. The receiver pass, great throw by Tyler Vaughns with good coverage still on Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
And then the flea flicker that they ran, good job by Jack Sears not trying to do too much. He found Michael Pittman in the under route rather than the deep route. There's 2 routes on that play.
I mean, typically you run the flea flicker to get the big play, but if it wasn't there, then take the,
And Michael Pittman nearly broke it and took it off down the sideline. Yeah. He stumbled a little bit coming out of a broken tackle and was tackled by a second defender, or else he would have probably taken it to the house. And last one I got here was, hey guys, any thoughts on Utah State, Hawaii? Let me tell you about Utah State. They're looking for their first 8-1 start since 1963. Their leading receiver, Jalen Green, former USC quarterback / wide receiver.
Hey-o.
Their 3rd leading receiver, Aaron Vaughns, big brother of Tyler Vaughns. So a little bit of USC connection with Utah State. So you should root for them, guys.
Is it Matt Campbell? Is he the head coach at Utah State?
That's Iowa State.
Their
coach though.
It's Matt Wells. Matt Wells is
he's a pretty good coach too.
And he's a big name out there. So if there's other jobs open around the country, like his is one of those names.
Yeah, he's the name.
And they should have beat. Who did they play? Was it Michigan State? They played someone.
Oh, early in the season, they lost a game where they were up. It was Michigan State, I think. Michigan or Michigan State?
It might have been Michigan or something. I don't remember. But it was like a big game, and they could easily be undefeated. But it's a good-looking...
Yeah, they were up late, and they lost that game. I think it was Michigan State. Yeah, it was.
Michigan State, yeah.
Yeah, they lost 38-31. They were, or maybe it was a late comeback, and they tied the score or something. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It was in August. How crazy is that?
Long time ago.
I'm sorry we didn't get any questions on Periscope. There was like a lot of comments.
Inside Troy.
You can tweet at me. Anger. But there was a lot of coaching suggestions. But people that were giving some love for Max Brown too, like they like him on the show.
Shouts to Max Brown.
And people still want to know what Keely's prediction is.
She didn't say
anything. Oh yeah, we didn't got that.
Y'all didn't let me say. I think it's a USC win. I think it's in the 40s, and Oregon State it has like 17.
The 40s in temperature.
Not too. Everyone
pray for Keely.
Pray for me for the cold.
Hopefully we don't have shaky footage. It's so cold.
No, I'm when it comes to footage, I do my due diligence. Hopefully it doesn't rain. That's the only thing that messes with footage.
Okay, so you guys think USC is going to cover the spread. All right.
Okay. I either think it's going to be close or a total blowout. But USC hasn't blown anyone out. I just think it's going to be one of those classic USC things where it's like, yeah, like Arizona State last season where they just come out and no one's expecting it and just put together a performance. I think this is the week to do it if you're going to do it.
And what happened in that game? They made a little bit of change before going into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oregon State's really weird also. And last time USC beat Oregon State, Gary Anderson quit, So it's like there's been some coaching weird stuff going on at Oregon State as well. Like having a head coach just quit middle of the season and walk away from $12 million. Like that's different. That doesn't happen all the time. But we'll see what happens. This is a team that's been like, it was weird. They put up a bunch of points on Ohio State, but they gave up 77. Like it's a really weird Oregon State team. Obviously USC has been pretty weird this year too. So it could be getting really weird up in Corvallis.
It's weird in Corvallis. It's been weird in Corvallis before for USC. So you never know. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up on a Thursday?
Team used a great. Maybe his team used to be great. Said, I hope T accepts his new role. It would suck seeing him in Alabama next year. It is where all USC former coaches send their team to.
Yeah, they seem to go there. His son is killing it at Clemson, Amari Rogers. So
his younger son is going to be a stud baseball player. Was with Team USA. So,
but his wife has work out here and stuff, and his son, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Yes, he scrubbed his Twitter account, but we don't, and he's very, I think, as Clay Helton demoted him or whatever, but I still think he would really like to keep him on staff because of his, at least because of his recruiting props. He also develops wide receivers and, does a really good job with that too. Yeah. So, there's a lot of positives to having, I know T. Martin got a lot of flack, but there's a lot of positives to having him around. So who knows what's going to happen? We don't, you can say you think he's going to go somewhere, but we don't know.
You never know. But that's why you stay tuned. Stay tuned to USC football because you never know. And the drama happens all the time. But we'll be covering it no matter what. That's
what we do.
That's what we do. But that's Shotgun Spratling. That is Ryan Abraham. I'm Keely Eure. We will see you guys on Sunday to break down the game and give you our reactions. But stay tuned and we'll see you then. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.